So, where's the next project then, Dad?
Here it is. That's it there. There isn't a car to restore. We're building a new shell completely from scratch. All of these panels here are original 60s panels, so new old stock. They've never been fitted to anything. They were sitting around for obviously 50 or 60 years. They had a little bit of surface corrosion and a load of grime on them. I took them to the blasters last week, he's blasted them, primed them, and now I've got a new floor and all the other panels that I'm going to need. I can start building a brand new 1965 specific body shell. So last week, a few of the heritage panels arrived. The Magnum bulkhead and the red oxide panels are the new old stock parts. They're 60 years old. I've just collected them from the blaster. They had 60 years of grime and surface rust on them. I've got the boot floor here. It's a later floor which I'm going to make the alterations to make it correct for 1965. And the new floor assembly's just arrived from M Machine. So I'm going to finish off the boot floor right now and then I'm going to start putting it all together. If you followed the last restoration that I did, before I fitted the boot floor, I altered this area where the fuel pipes go through. I took this section from the original boot floor and welded it in, but this time, since we haven't got the original boot floor, I've bought this from a company called Cat Mint. They fabricate it. I'm going to weld it in there. They do make a nice job of these. I've cut that in for a butt weld, and that's just resting in place, ready for tacking. The preparations are finished on the new boot floor. I welded up all the extra holes that aren't needed. Got the bracket for the hydroelastic pipes. Battery box with the little corner pieces to stop the panel splitting. Caged nuts for the fuel tanks and the battery earth. The silver spray is weld through primer. That'll clean off later on before paint. On the other side you can see I've corrected where the fuel pipes go through. Got the bracket for the standard fuel tank. Tabs for the wiring. And I've pre-drilled the holes for the right hand fuel tank bracket. As ever, the choice of floor manufacturer is down to the customer. This customer's decided on an M Machine floor. Because he's asked for my best work, there's a few personal touches that I do. I've done one half and left the other half as it comes out of the box. First thing is to remove these two tabs. That's what's underneath them. And then I'll weld them up, clean it up, like that. This rear slinging bracket is MIG welded on. So I drill and plug weld and then clean it up so it looks like it's spot welded on. On the back end of the sill there should be a captive nut in there, just like that, for the grease nipple shroud cover. In the tunnel I grind off these tack welds, plug weld it and clean it up so it looks like that. And then I drill out the spot welds that hold the three sections together, and I'll run a cutting disc through and then continuously weld it all the way along so it looks tidy. Finally, at the front, the toe panel has this stiffener panel spot welded on, so you need a recess there and there, which are as standard. The M Machine floor doesn't have that, so I formed them myself. I'll crack on with the other side now and I can start building up the floor assembly. I've finished all the preparations on the main floor. I've prepared all the little bits, so I'm going to start building the car now. That spacer is to represent the pocket that goes in there. Need a thickness of material between the boot floor and that closing panel. This bracket goes there. I can't spot weld here because there's 4 thicknesses of metal and that only does up to 3mm, so we've got 4mm here. So I'll drill some holes through this, through the boot floor, into this stiffener for the subframe, do some plug welds, and that'll just hold it together nicely. They don't need to be massive, 1/4 inch is fine. When I spot welded this panel in place, I had this spacer in there. I said that I needed a metal thickness. This is white. Pocket slots in there like that. Now that everything's correctly located on the jig, most things are tacked in or spot welded in. I need to do some rectification on these new old stock panels. There's a few dents on them. There's a couple of panels that, although they're still new old stock, they're not actually 1965 specific. So I need to make some alterations on those. All of a sudden it looks like I've done loads. Those panels are just clamped on. Obviously I need to clean up the spot weld flanges and put the weld through primer on. I'm just pre-fitting at the moment and checking things fit. I'll show you why I haven't spot welded those rear pockets in place yet. I've got the ashtray panel in the right place, the pocket's in the right place. But just here, I need to create a little joggle where there's an extra thickness of metal in between the inner and the outer. I'll show you how to do that. This is really simple. You can see my pencil line where I want the joggle to be. So I've clamped it to my surface plate with a piece of 1mm thick steel underneath, and I'll chase in that joggle. Yeah, I know you should hit one hammer with another, but I do quite often. Okay, you can see where the joggle is now on the inner panel, on the pocket. You can see there's extra thickness on the inside there and the outer panel. That's just how they were from the factory. This morning I did a quick pre-fit of the rear bulkhead so I can correctly position these brackets. They're literally just to stiffen the boot floor because the hydroelastic bump stops come up under the boot floor and that just stops them denting. As usual, plenty of zinc primer. I'm going to weld the rear bulkhead in place now. And now the rear bulkhead's all welded in. The pocket's welded in, spot welded down the seat base and the ashtray. I'm going to get onto the front bulkhead now. Got these new old stock front inner wings clamped in place now so that I can start fitting the new Magnum bulkhead. They really fit beautifully. See how nicely they line up to the flange down there. And all inside the A-post. It's like slotting Lego together. Here's the new bulkhead. I need to assemble that and get it fitted in the place and put some bonnet hinge brackets on it. So I can start spot welding some body panels in place. I'm just fitting bonnet hinge brackets on this new bulkhead. I've come across this before when replacing a bulkhead, that the hinge on this side, the measurement from top of the cross member to the centre of the hole was 9.5 inches. On that side it was 9 3/4. On that job I didn't have another car to check at the time, so I split the difference and made them both 9 5/8. It worked out well, but this time I've got 3 other cars here to check, and every one of them is the same. From here to the centre of the hole is 9.5 this side, that side is 9 3/4, so I'm replicating that. But I'm interested to know what you would do. Let me know in the comments. A fun little detail here on the inner wing. That pressing just there, that's correct for a 1965. but the other side hasn't got it. So I've marked it out. I'm going to stretch it in. That's it roughed in. Now for some planishing. I'm usually removing that pressing rather than adding them. Okay, a few small issues this afternoon. Initially, the new bulkhead just wouldn't line up quite right. I wasn't happy and I was moving it around and playing about, but you're governed by the fixing points on the jig. They're in the correct place, so it just wouldn't fit. I realised the reason is because these side panels, although they're new, but they're old, they've been stored for 50 or 60 years, and they were a bit out of shape. I had this same issue on a new old stock pickup side panels that I built a pickup last year, and the side panels were out of shape on that as well. This side now, with some wedges and some clamps, the door, new old stock door, fits reasonable, good enough for now. I will perfect it later on, but I'll show you the other side and you'll see what my problem is. Again, we got a new old stock door, not quite as clean as the other side unfortunately, but if you look along the bottom, there's no gap at all. And then you look at the top, there's no gap at all. It's just the door is wedged in there. That's all that's holding it. But then we got a big gap just here. And that's because this side panel is out of shape, the same as the other side was. So I'm going to reshape it now. But I've run out of mold grips, so I've got to go and buy some more. Okay, so now that door fits as well. It's wedged in. I've got 40 pairs of mold grips holding the thing together. Bulkhead fits perfect. The inner wings seem to be perfect. I'm going to strip them off now, make a few small adjustments, a couple of corrections to make it right for the year, and then reassemble and start spot welding.